How on earth one supposed to reach a native or native-like fluency with no other activity than listening? Isn't listening for 2000 hours to teachers not exceedingly boring? Do you think that shadowing creates interference? Do you think it is possible to learn with this method after having tried a traditional method for a few months? My name is Inna and this is Comprehensible Russian channel. Check the description below this video. I will leave all the useful links about the ALG method and anything that you could need in your learning journey, like the ALG roadmap to natural Russian fluency in 3 versions for different categories of your native language, a quick start guide for ALG method, notes about how to choose the best CI content, and a prompt for crosstalk sessions with Russian tutors. By the way, since October this year, 2025, we started to release much more videos. Well, we're releasing videos every day. So if you subscribe for our premium, you will get new video every day, every single day. Also join our group and individual crosstalk and conversational live meetings. And now let's get to our conversation with Marc. Hi, Marc. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Alexandra Lach, 8508. Do you think it is possible to learn with this method after having tried a traditional method for a few months? I began to learn Russian a few months ago with an app and some videos. I hope it is not too late to reverse the process because I learned vocabulary, a little grammar, and also spoke and wrote on a notebook. What do you think, Marc? Is it too late?
Yeah, I had the same exact experience in so much as when I decided I was going to or wanted to learn Russian, I I didn't know about the resources that were available, like your website or even YouTube presenters. I was just listening to a repetition of vocabulary words on YouTube that happened to be spoken really clearly and distinctly. So yeah, there were some hundreds of words without any explanation by the speaker. There was no translation or anything like that. So I listened to those words. I was spending a lot of time on the road driving, and yeah, I just listened to them repeatedly over and over. And then later, I did. Someone introduced me to uh, Duolingo, and I started listening to Duolingo. But after a couple of months, and it was helpful, but it wasn't really like the natural method because um, you know, you know how the app works. Uh, that's about the time when I found you and started following your videos and realized that yeah, you were teaching with the ALG method. So I immediately deleted my Duolingo app. Um, but so in a sense, to answer your question, uh, I was doing some other things before I started, following the ALG method. And I don't think it made any difference and it wasn't detrimental to me in any way. So as far as, the comment, I think that as long as you, stop doing the things that are, considered traditional, you could transition right into uh, ALG, natural learning.
Okay, thank you. It does not prevent you from progressing with ALG anyway. Like you can still start using the method and you will still progress, and this interference will be somehow lost in your brain. maybe it will have a little bit of influence. I mean, especially if you were heavily drilling, exercising, and doing this intensively for a long time, maybe yes. And especially it affects the accent. If you were speaking a lot, then you would lock in those false um, pronunciations, something like that. But if you were doing this for a little while, not too much, and so on, like, well, proportionally. But still, I think that natural acquisition still helps in any case. It will do better for you in any case.
Yeah,
The
I want
second,
to, yeah, I want to
sorry.
just comment briefly on, yeah, this idea that you're talking about. And, I was able to have this experience being around people who uh, had studied Thai in the traditional method, and some who were even studying with the natural approach at AUA, and continuing to study with the traditional method outside of the classroom.
Mm,
And since I was, yeah, trying to adhere to the method, Dr. Brown's method, I didn't do any of that. I didn't study outside. I didn't ask questions or look up words or anything like that. And it became really obvious to me, after some months, after some hundreds of hours, that my friends who were studying the traditional method, their pronunciation and their accents, yeah, were, in my opinion, deplorable. I knew what good Thai sounded like, and yeah, they were like off the path. And yeah, I knew them for some years after that as well. That we were friends, and yeah, they never recovered. They always had, uh, you know, I guess foreign spoke Thai with a foreign accent,
mm,
and had poor pronunciation. Not that I was, uh, you know, so skilled that uh, you know I could just hear what the language was supposed to sound like from my teachers and from the people living in Thailand. And yeah, my friends who did mix the two methods, it was decidedly different, a different sound. So yeah, it just reinforced, you know, uh,
mhm,
the path that I was following. That's all.
mhm. Yeah, I see. That's the same thing was being said by David Long in his interviews. The same thing.
Mm-hmm.
How about the balance between passive and active language learning? It seems your passive skills are much higher than your active skills, or not?
Well, it, the passive skills of listening and comprehension, certainly work much better in the beginning
Mhm.
than actively the speaking part. And yeah, you become more and more comfortable with the passive skills of listening and understanding just by spending the time and you know, getting the feeling that you're understanding what's being said. I can say I'm not really at a point where in the Russian language study that, I have any active skills, or I have minimal active skills, but I don't have any doubt that I'll progress in that way. So again, that kind of goes back to the motivation.
Mhm, mhm. So, according to your experience, it's normal that passive skills go um, much ahead of active skills.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. In my case, for sure.
and shadowing is good when it's done naturally. Like it happened to me with um, in Japanese and in French, both. I was shadowing, but I didn't know that I'm shadowing. I didn't know that term. I was just playing with sounds. I was playing with words. Um, I wanted to play with it, even mocking, really, like they do this or that, because it's fun, and I liked to do that. First, I was mimicking sounds, then I would mimic some words and phrases, um, and later sentences. But every time I was listening to something, especially repeatedly, that would be absolutely natural to repeat those phrases that I've heard many times. That would be really supernatural. Like, oh, I've heard this so many times. They say blah, 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 this, some phrase. Even if I don't know the meaning, I want to pronounce it because it's already here in my head. It's stuck. And now I can say it out loud. So that's for me is natural shadowing. But when you're doing shadowing as a deliberate practice, I don't see the point really. Like if you don't like natural approach and natural acquisition of language, do whatever you want. But if but if you want the natural fluency in the end, I wouldn't recommend doing shadowing deliberately.
I just wanted to say I've heard the term shadowing, yeah, mentioned on your website or maybe in your uh, presentation about ALG. I wasn't really sure what shadowing meant. I'm glad you just explained it.
Yeah, well, shadowing exists in the language learning community more on the side of other methods. Um, it's a practice when you're listening to a video, let's say, and either pausing or not. No, I think they don't pause, but you're repeating almost simultaneously with the speech. Like you're listening, repeating, not pausing the video, even.
Hmm.
Uh-huh. But there is only also another practice recently presented. I forgot how they call it now. It's kind of the same with like as shadowing, but you can pause. Um, no, you're actually taking a small piece of audio. You listen to it and repeat, and then you listen to it again, and you repeat it again. So you're repeating the same thing all over. But this, well, for me, first, I couldn't do it. Um, I would not be able even just because I hate practicing. Like it's tedious for me, like that. Mm,
Yeah, I have
and
something
I
to
don't,
say.
yeah, and I don't see the point, as I already explained. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I have something to say about that. So, yeah, I understand the concept of shadowing. And for me, that it's too much like thinking about what I'm learning and thinking about anything other than just listening and absorbing the words and sounds. Um, yeah, I think that's something that, new new learners to the ALG method or the natural approach, it's it's important to, yeah, understand the concept like right from the very beginning that these things like trying to think about what's being said, it's yeah, it's not like a normal concept when you come to learning or someone's learning ability. In my experiences, the less I thought about anything, uh, the better I did. in the process. So
Exactly.
yeah, I won't be
Hmm.
shadowing anytime soon.
Never. Next question is Archie Sinol. I have no idea how to read that. Sorry. 91004. Um, the ALG method claims to reach native or native-like fluency, which means C2, or in case of a native way above that. But how on earth is one supposed to do that with no other activity than listening? The second question, isn't listening for 2,000 hours to teachers not exceedingly boring? You got to do something finally. Mm, okay, then he's talking about his own experience. Let's answer the questions. What do you think, Mark? How are you supposed to do that with no other activity than listening?
Well, depending on your personal circumstance, if you're, fortunate enough to be in an environment where you can have other interaction besides listening, yeah, then that would be, yeah, the optimal way to do it, right? To be listening and then be able to go out into society or the world and interact with people or watch them or whatever. Most of the I'm assuming most of the ALG listeners today are, tied to a computer. So, know, uh, there's only one way or the other. You have, the input in real life and, through your video listening or watching, or you have just the video part of it, and then hopefully someday you'll be able to put it in practice. So I'm not sure exactly, what kind of answer the commenter is looking for, but it is what it is.
I think that's a very common misunderstanding of the method. I mean, the popular understanding of LG method is a misunderstanding. So it, maybe because we are learning about this method usually through YouTube videos, um, and not digging into the first-hand resources. And what happens on YouTube, well, that's the environment of YouTube dictates the creators to, find clickable titles and simplify things. So ALG nowadays is very much presented like only listening approach with no speaking, like silent period, and then one day, whoop, and you start speaking like God. um, and well, it's partly true, but it's super simplified. It's not exactly this. It's not that you are not doing any other activity than listening. It's not true. It's just that, well, actually, the AUA school in Thailand, if you would continue and if you would take more lessons up to 2,000 hours, I know that they had also reading at some point,
Mhm.
not early on, but later, about 400 hours. And that in their program, they would start reading. So it's not excluded. They started speaking around 700 hours, well, around, not exactly again, depending on the student. They started speaking, so that's another activity. I don't know about writing right away. Mm, either I forgot or maybe it was not mentioned. Um, but it's not that ALG says don't do anything, just listen. No, it's just that listening should be the foundation. Like
exactly.
You are starting to build a house with foundation. If you did not pour the a good foundation enough, your house will not live a long and happy life. So, um, and in ALG, in natural approach, this foundation is listening comprehension, input, um, which makes everything go natural, practically effortless, um, afterwards with other activities. Like speaking comes naturally, reading becomes not a suffering, but actually quite pleasant, and so on and so on. So,
Yeah, I will comment that I do remember that, after yes, attaining certain levels in the natural approach in the school, they did offer reading and writing uh, courses for some of the students because some of the students, they were working in Thailand and they had, jobs where they were interacting with, Thais who maybe it didn't require them to read, but they wanted to be able to read or write some things. People, would go there and yeah, they'd have uh, jobs or work for companies where they would be there for years and years. So that was offered, not you know it wasn't required, and not all of the students chose to take those extra courses. But yeah, they certainly were offered. So um, but again, it depends on an individual circumstance and what they wanted to achieve. Personally, I didn't have any reason to study reading or writing. I was happy to just be able to communicate and
mm,
uh, yeah, not on some really high level. I didn't want to talk about politics or sports. I just wanted to be able to talk to people.
mhm,
What
mhm.
was the second part of the question?
Isn't listening for 2,000 hours to teachers not exceedingly boring? You got to do something
Mm.
finally.
Mm. Yeah, well, certainly, you know, even following the guideline, there wasn't any restriction on speaking, until you hit 2,000 hours. The suggestion was that, speech will start to, and you talked about this in your video, that speech will start to emerge naturally, at about 500 or 700 hours. Uh, you know, Spontaneously you'll be able to say something, or some words or phrases, and that's the point where the part about not speaking doesn't apply anymore. So as you go through and get more and more hours, it's okay to start using the language because it's already imprinted in your brain. There's no danger of mispronunciation or, um, you know, uh, yeah, because it. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
know it just like certain other things after 100 hours. Yeah, you might not be able ready to say them, but yeah, you inherently know some things, some words or phrases, and so yeah, I would say that it's not boring uh, for someone because that's not the way it works. There is a progression of speaking that happens long before 2,000 hours.
Mm-hmm. So the main thing is not to have this mindset of strict silent period, like it's forbidden to speak. It's not forbidden to speak. It's forbidden to force speaking. It's forbidden
Yeah.
to deliberately practice speaking like in traditional ways, like where we all get together in a classroom. Some the teacher pronounces a phrase and everyone is starting speaking directly, or just like from a mathematical formula from the whiteboard, taking the words, you know, just drawing, taking this word and that word, and like a constructor trying to build a sentence and immediately speak it, pronounce it uh, at the very first day of class.
Yeah, right.
This is what we are talking about. Don't speak in
Yeah.
this way. Please don't do that if you want to acquire language naturally. But when you when your speech, even if it's just only one sound, if it comes naturally, not someone is making you doing this, but just you're doing this out of joy, as we already discussed in the beginning. If you just want to play with the language, if it comes naturally, if you have this din in your head, a phrase always din 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 din, uh, sounding just by itself, you didn't call it. Um, then, well, yeah, you should do this because that's a natural
Mhm.
thing. It's the part of natural process, but don't expect that you will speak with word well, words maybe, but not sentences from the very beginning. You will first produce some sounds, maybe even combinations of sounds, which make words or phrases, even if you don't understand this phrase, but you could pronounce it. And then
I,
this thing will increase with time, and at some point you will be able to speak with phrases and full sentences.
I might say that the idea of not speaking, and that was one of the quote rules, in the classroom, in the school in the beginning. And I think it is important, in the first couple hundred hours that you don't try to speak because, yeah, I even found my own experience uh, and with Thai and with Russian was that, you know, after 150 hours or 200 hours, yeah, I felt really comfortable. I thought I knew some particular words, and when I tried to, say it just one word or two words, and I was confident that I knew it, and someone would look at me and say, "What?" They didn't understand me.
Mm.
So, because I didn't really have it uh, in my
Yet.
brain the way it should be. I thought I did, and yeah, so that slowed me down from the idea of trying to say something too early. Um, yeah, and sure
Mm.
enough, as time went by, and I wanted to use a word or a couple of words here and there, I got the reaction, "Hey, you can really pronounce that really well," So,
Mhm.
yeah, the idea of not speaking uh, too early, I think, is a really important one because you really have to have that. In my case, speaking personally, I really have to have that basis where for sure I learned the word naturally.
Mhm.
It's not my idea of, how it's supposed to sound, because once my idea of how it's supposed to sound gets involved, it's wrong, right? It has to be, learned uh, yeah, in a natural way before I can actually get it right. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Mm. It makes sense, but it's not easy to grasp, I think. Uh,
Yeah.
it's a feeling, and it's very hard to explain it. What's the difference between uh, do I really know this word, or I just think that I know it? How to explain that? I don't know really. The rule. that you should not output something that you did not input.
Hmm.
That's a golden rule, really.
Right.
And then you need to be wise enough to differentiate if you have this input enough and you know this word or phrase or something, or you know how it should sound and so on, or you don't. And um, I don't think there is just one strict line between those two things. Even when you said, "Oh, I said something too early," or maybe you didn't say it too early. Maybe you were okay because kids sometimes say something in the wrong way too. But yes, it's a mistake, but it's not a mistake. It's just part of the process. Um,
Right.
so it's just a little signal that, well, if they didn't understand you, maybe it's a little bit early, or maybe you should autocorrect yourself, or uh, go listen to this kind of input again. Um, but it's not a catastrophe. You did not break your Russian at this point.
Right.
Like just yeah, you have to adjust your ways all the time, just to feel mm, just to feel if it's the right timing or not, because as it is a natural process, there are no strict limits. Just like for kids, there are some normatives. Is there this word in English? I don't know. Some norma for this or that process, like, you go to the doctor and they say, oh, your kid is doing this or doing that. It's too late for that. Or it's, oh, wow, it's so early and he already does this. And parents can get confused. Is it good or bad? Should I worry? But eventually every kid does it anyway. I mean, those lines and rules and normas, they are not super strict, so you have to be sensitive to yourself
Hmm.
and not too strict to yourself. You can make experiments. Go try to output if you feel like. If it goes well, if people give you a good feedback, maybe it's time. um, if they are not too polite with you. Find an honest um, native
I,
speaker
you know,
for a feedback.
for for me, it's good to, yeah, always think about this idea of not trying to speak too early. Yeah, sometimes we do, and you're understood or you're not understood. But I think, for me personally, the longer I can refrain from trying to speak, yeah, the better I'll be later on in the end. So
I agree.
it's a difficult, uh, if you're worried about it, it's a difficult way to progress, in the learning process. But I'm not too worried about it. I don't really have any, problem about not speaking. I want to try to, adhere to the basic idea. Yeah, as
Mhm.
long as I can, as much as I can, because I know in the end it'll benefit me. And it did benefit me when I learned, the Thai language, using that kind of thought process.
I think also this rule of silent period, like you should not speak and so on, has developed out of mm, uh, in an attempt to oppose the traditional learning, because the traditional learning is so hard on this speak from day one, speak, 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 and then everyone has this idea, I need to speak, I have to speak. That's how I perform, how well I learn the language. And it's very hard to convince the person that you don't have to speak day one. And they They cannot get this idea right away, and then you have to be strict.
I would say that, like, for me personally, the best guide on knowing whether I should speak or try to say a word when someone doesn't understand me, yeah, I know it's time to like back up a little bit and, you know,
Right.
you know, so that's really the test.
Hmm.
Yeah, for me personally, that if they understand me, it's great. If they don't, yeah, maybe I have to listen some more.
That's right. But also, the more input you get, the more this audio model of the language is kind of
Mhm.
downloaded to your brain.
Yeah.
And when you have it, you don't even need a feedback from someone. When you pronounce something, you can yourself compare it to the ideal, the perfect sounding, how it should be, because this perfect sounding is saved in your brain here already, your
Hmm.
input storage. You can compare it and autocorrect yourself. Um, if you're, attentive enough, and if you have enough input, you can do that yourself. So yes, that don't speak rule is a, is a matter of big discussions, but I don't think, on one hand, I don't think um, you should forbid yourself to speak, and on the other hand, don't hurry with that. But if to
Hmm.
put it simple, don't force speaking, but speak when it happens naturally. But there was another question. Isn't it, n- uh, isn't listening for 2000 hours to teachers not exceedingly boring?
Yeah, I think that um, I think we answered this, but I'll try again. Um,
Sorry.
yeah, that yeah, it's not boring because all the way along that progression of listening, you know, the level of knowledge and comfortability that you're getting, um, you know, it's what makes the process enjoyable, right? Um, after 100 hours, you know a lot more than you did when you started, and after 500 hours, you can start to say some words correctly, and after 1,000 hours, there's an obvious, uh, ability to speak and understand. So no, I don't think, you know 2,000 hours sounds like, a lot, right? If you were just sitting there listening, but it's not really like that. Other things happen along the way. So, um, I mean, I'm perhaps there are people who would sit and listen for 2,000 hours without doing anything else, but I can't imagine it.
But so, what are you proposing? What are you suggesting to do
Well,
besides listening?
I'm just suggesting that, at some point you have to have some interaction,
Hmm.
with a native speaker.
Right.
Whether it's, if you happen to be fortunate enough to be, immersed in a society of native speakers, yeah, there's going to be a lot going on all the time. If you don't have that option, then, other than just listening to comprehensible input, yeah, you have to make some kind of contact to be able to gauge, your ability and your progression, whether it's through a crosstalk or interacting with a speaker slash teacher, um, for different sessions. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, what would be the point of just listening for 2,000 hours and not doing anything? Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
don't I don't think anyone would do that.
I agree. I agree. The, I think just listening is enough. If you want, it's enough. But I think it's more motivating and more fun to interact with native speakers. That's true. And it's very
Yeah.
beneficial as well. Like you can take what I recommend is making crosstalks from the very beginning, even if you don't
Mm.
speak yet. You don't have to speak at crosstalks. You can speak English, and the native speaker speaks Russian to you. So doing crosstalks until the point where when you feel that you can speak Russian. And actually, during those crosstalks, while your speaking ability is developing, you speak English, and then sometimes you can drop a word of Russian if you feel confident, like, oh, I know this one, I can say it right now. Ding, you
Hmm.
just insert it there. And actually, your language partner is patient because it's not just someone from the street, but an ALG teacher. So he's patient, he's caretaking, and he will show you with his facial expression, for example, if you said it in a good way or not. You can have this feedback, um, and then increase the amount of Russian you're using in the sessions. And then you can move on to conversations, which is about well, the standard medium roadmap for Russian. It's around 900 hours that we start speaking with full improvised meaningful sentences. Um, so approximately at this time, or even a bit earlier, you can start conversations, like turn off, switch off your English and just speak Russian all the time with a native speaker. Um, so yeah, you have things to do. You have things to do. And even in the crosstalk, when you are not speaking, so you could say, what's the point then? If I'm not practicing speaking, why should I do crosstalks? Well, it's actually um, for developing the connection with a native speaker, right? As you just said before, you're developing a real human connection. This language parent becomes familiar with your level and can adapt his speech very well to you and can feel you and can give you a better feedback, a better input, adjusted like super individually according to your level and your personality. So there are so even if you're not speaking, crosstalks are very beneficial in this way. You can get your tons of input, have fun, build interaction, and so on and so on. So
Yeah,
it
and
could be another thing that motivates you. I mean, the question is how isn't it too boring? Well, you can do like this. You can interact with native speakers.
yeah, as far as crosstalks, yeah, I really enjoy crosstalks, especially because, yeah, we'll call them classmates, the other people who are
Mm.
participating. Yeah, it's nice to see them, and it's nice to hear something about their lives. And uh, I c- I have also noticed their progression in understanding and yeah, even speaking sometimes. So yeah, it's the whole experience that you know is different than sitting for 2,000 hours and listening to a video. So
Hmm.
yeah,
It's like a
it's
little party.
exactly
Hmm.
a nice one.
Um, yeah. And also another thing about is it boring or not? That's exactly why. mm, Well, actually, that's very important that you should not be bored with the content you're watching. If you're bored, I think your level of attention, motivation, and progress in general is really decreasing. So don't get bored with your input, please. Mm, and that's actually what we're really trying to do at Comprehensible Russian is to make the wide variety of formats that anyone could find something that is interesting and engaging, inspiring, or um, uh, when people want to either entertain themselves or to learn something new about the culture, about Russia, or anything else. Um, so that everyone can find something and not get bored. Mm,
Have fun.
yeah. Yeah, have fun. Play with the language. Be like a kid. hmm I think that's it. Or there is one. Is it a question or not? Yeah, it's not exactly a question, but it's a good comment, I think. So that's not actually Dr. Vinny Boombads.
Vinny Boombats. Do you know what that means, Vinny
No,
Boombats?
no.
So in particular in New York, uh, yeah, there's a lot of Italians, and uh, that's that's like a name of a fictional character, uh, a fictional Italian character who's in the mafia, right?
Uh-huh.
So these mafiosos have nicknames, right? And one of them in a film or a story would be Vinny Boombats, right? So
Ah.
that's where Vinny Boombats. I would say he's from New York.
Okay. Thank you. Um, so that's not actually how and why babies become fluent, which they don't. First of all, no baby is fluent. Infants learn their native language through a constant, immersive feedback loop of, yes, listening, but also attempting to speak and being corrected. As anyone who's ever been around infants can, can attest, no baby just sits there listening passively. They're constantly trying to speak, being corrected and encouraged, etc. It's odd to me that one of the fundamental tenets of this theory is seemingly so flawed out of the gate.
Out of the gate.
Sorry,
That
what is tenants?
it means like the premise, the reason.
Ah,
Uh, he's saying it. The reasoning is flawed out of the gate. Out
mhm,
of the gate is another New York expression, and yeah, just coincidentally, that's talking about when you're at the horse racing track and the gates open and the
mhm,
horses jump out. That's where the saying out of the gate comes from. So it means quickly, right?
mhm.
But anyway, I have something to say about that. And I'm living with a child who's 1.5 years old. And I watch that child every day. Uh, she can't speak yet, but she's constantly watching her mother or me or someone else who is speaking, and I can see she's listening. Uh, she's getting input, right? And she's at that point where she does make sounds like you know, she wants to or has the idea of saying words, but she can't form a word yet. And so she's not constantly being corrected. She is constantly listening. Uh, Maybe when she's 3 or 4 years old, yeah, there'll be some correction. But right now, she's just getting, comprehensible input. from everything that's going on in the house or from the person who's speaking. So I would say Mr. Vinny Boombats is not exactly correct in his uh, opinion there.
Hmm. I see. I think actually partly yes, partly no, because there is a certain amount of time when a kid is not yet speaking and only getting input. Well, but again, we already talked about this so many times today, but again, speaking has different stages, right? And
Hmm.
well, according to my roadmap, there is the bubbling stage where you just trying to produce sounds and that's it, because you don't understand much yet in the language, and you're so much focused on the sounds, and it's fun to mimic them. So that's the bubbling stage. Um, well, at least for a year, a baby acts like this, and then he develops his speaking. He can say little words, especially "give me." Yeah, that's the first word of every baby. Give me, give me. At least for my daughter, it was this. Um, more cookies. She had two words, first words. More cookies. And by the way, more was said in French and cookies was said in Russian. And she just combined it in one sentence. That was quite funny. So yes and no. So um, there are stages. I mean, Dr. Vinny Boombats is not totally wrong. And he's actually quite right, I think. Very correct comment that, first of all, he's saying a baby is not fluent. Of course, he's not fluent yet. He needs time. I would say a child is fluent maybe by 6, 7 years old. Of course,
Hmm.
not adult fluency because he doesn't have any adult experience in the adult world, so he doesn't understand the adult language yet, but he can communicate any message he wants within his life experience quite freely. And then later on, he gains the like adult fluency later in the next maybe 10 years. So of course, babies are not fluent. And of course, yes, there is this loop. How did he write it? Yeah, feedback loop of yes, listening, but also attempting to speak and being corrected. I agree, and I have this experience. I've been watching very attentively at my daughter because I was already thinking a lot about learning languages naturally, and I was like looking at her. What is she doing right now? What is she? What am I doing to her while she's doing that and that? So, of course, it's a loop. I don't think it's one way thing. Like you're not a computer that is being just that has this input uploaded to your
Hmm.
system and not, and locking it. Of course, you're trying, it's natural, you're trying, you're playing, you get the feedback, not always even like someone is correcting you. Sometimes, yes, correct, depending on parents, by the way, the personality of parents. Some parents are always correcting and strict. And some parents will just, laugh, for example, and the kid is learning, okay, did she laugh because it was funny or because I was wrong? La, 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 la. I don't know. I think it's intuitively clear what happens, but I think laugh
Yeah,
is
my
better feedback.
my point was that yeah, this what you're talking about takes uh, happens over a long period of time, over years, right?
Right.
So yeah, there is that period, that early period for the first couple of years where there's no correction. The baby's just getting input. And yeah, later on, like you say, the parents may or may not, interact in that way. But in the end, it's always the same. The child ends up and turns out speaking, and they turn out speaking correctly, whether, they were corrected or not corrected or paid attention to. Eventually they speak their native language.
That's a good point, actually. That's a very good point. Whether you were corrected or not, you will end up speaking perfectly your native language because you've been exposed to the correct native language so much that you cannot end up with the wrong language. Yeah, because input works like this. Because it develops a feeling what's right. A feeling, not the knowledge, because I think when you get knowledge by studying, mm, um, it's easier
I
to
would
make
say I
mistakes.
would say it's not even a feeling. It's just right.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
just happens correctly.
yes, maybe. Exactly. Well, that was the last question, I think, and I hope we did not lose anything or miss anything in the comments. Well, actually, that was a very good the discussion. I'm very grateful to you, Mark, that
Mhm.
you dedicated so that much of time for our conversation. I hope that the viewers are happy uh, about our answers, about your answers mainly. And I remind you that I will have another Q&A session where I will answer the questions that were addressed to me under my very long video.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, today, even if I gave my opinion here and there, um, I was trying to focus more on Mark's answers. And in the next Q&A, I will speak only for myself. So there will be another long monologue, I think. And also find all the links below this video. Like you will find a roadmap, the 3 versions of roadmap. Find all the links to other videos where we discuss the method and other useful materials. And also you can join our Crosstalk group sessions and individual sessions with our ALG trained speakers, caretaking, and so on. So everything is below this video. Mark, final word?
Um, yeah, no, I really appreciate the conversation and you know ALG comprehensible input. It's something that really made personally made a difference to me. I really like the idea of learning a language and especially learning it correctly, where I can communicate and people understand what I'm saying or I understand what they're saying. So I don't have too many hobbies, but I would say
Hmm.
this is a good one for me.
Well, I'm happy that you're happy.
Thank you.
Thanks again for this conversation. And maybe see you next time here on the
Okay.
Comprehensible Russian channel.
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.